They didn't see me. That was a good thing because there was no way I could kill them quickly with a shotgun or pistol. It would take multiple shots to destroy them, and at this range, long before that happened, they'd fry me with their lightning balls. And I could forget about rockets, unless I had this burning desire to be a Burn Ward poster boy. This seemed a fine time to give the big freaking gun. Call it a BFG, a shot. Taking a deep breath, I raised this fine piece of Union Aerospace Corporation craftsmanship and pointed it at the nearest oblivious target. There was no obvious trigger mechanism, so I squeezed the hand grip. There was no kick at all. Instead, I heard a loud whine of energy. The pumpkins heard it also and started rotating. Nothing had come out of the muzzle of the weapon yet. I had just about decided I'd made a big freaking mistake when a green ball of energy exploded from the sealed mouth of the gun. The light was so bright it seared my eyes. The pumpkins screamed and popped like balloons, leaving nothing but smoking blue and orange shreds. But my troubles were not over. I wasn't back home with my feet up. A horde of zombies poured out of cubbyholes that were like eyes, stretched up and down both corridors. Funny how I hadn't noticed them until trouble came out. Exhaustion was taking its toll and making me lose my edge. I'd already dropped to my belly when I heard the unmistakable clatter of machine gun bullets ripping over my head. Who the hell was shooting now? The attack came from behind. I was tired of attacks coming from behind. Rolling to the side, staying low, I fired off another BFG blast down the corridor to the left. The results were good. A large bunch of fried zombies. I was ready to institute a firm gun control policy for all undead. I would firmly control my BFG as I fired it. Leaping down from the pumpkin platform, I bolted along the corridor to the left end, ducking into a cubbyhole myself. Old rule, when a bad guy comes out of a hole, he's not there anymore. I laid down the BFG and unslung my trusty shotgun, then poked my nose out of the cubbyhole again. Seemed like a good idea at the time. A stream of bullets came out of nowhere, and I ducked back in. And at last I figured out what the hell was happening. It was Arlene. She must be firing across the hidden teleport pad, and her bullets were being teleported to where I had first emerged. No wonder the zombies were confused. This was enough to confuse someone with a functional brain. She was doing just as good a job of mowing them down as if she'd been present and accounted for. Encouraged, I helped out and shot the ones who ran past my cubbyhole, hunting for an enemy. Suspectors weren't the only ones who could play this game. Of course, the zombies got mad and started shooting each other. They were all dead by the time Arlene joined me. She hopped off the pad and I filled her in. Then, we returned to the end of the corridor where I had hidden. I'd seen a door awaiting our attention. There was no special key required to open this one. Of course not. A hell prince waited for us on the other side. It had a blue keycard in its mouth. We took it after making a fair trade. He got a whole bunch of rockets. I'm sure the Minotaur appreciated our generosity. Returning to the mouth of the corridor, we picked up Rich. We hadn't forgotten him. Rich never seemed to regret missing out on our repeated exterminations, although he acquitted himself admirably when backed into a corner. The perfect civilian. He'd have done well at Lexington and Concord, provided there wasn't a lot of running involved. The three of us trucked back across the courtyard to the locked door, and none of us was the least surprised when the key unlocked it. Inside was a single, ornate teleport pad. We blinked into existence in a vast room, a huge, open pit with a narrow catwalk running around the periphery. Our eyes watered from mist in the air. The place stank of boiled rock, and the walls were the color of dried blood, and everywhere was the stench of sour lemons. "This is it," Rich said, suddenly excited. "This is the place where the mastermind, interrogated me." I'd been getting to the point of dismissing any differences in the hellish architecture. All the chambers seemed more and more identical, but they'd never tortured me, stringing me up to hang halfway between life and death. There was no doubting Rich's memory after what he'd been through. We heard a cacophony from below, as if a monster convention was being held under our noses. We dropped on our bellies, hugging the catwalk, and listened. I heard roaring, grunting, screaming, wheezing, howling, snuffling, and even a weird piping or whistling. Heavy thumping and thudding left no doubt that some of the big guys were down there. Didn't hear a steam demon, though. That was the only good news. "If you want to see the spider mind, now's your chance," Rich whispered. "Isn't it special invitation only?" Arlene asked. "I can't help it," I whispered. "I'm a born gatecrasher." She crawled to the edge. "Pumpkins, hell princes, those crazy flying skulls. Did we ever get around to naming them?" Arlene looked at me with a strange expression, as if I'd just missed something. "Gee, how about flying skulls? Any objections?" Shaking my head, I couldn't help but notice Hitch's expression. He probably thought our little name game the pinnacle of insanity, and Rich had a gift for it himself. He'd called our steam demon a cyber dude, and Spider Mind turned out to be a perfect description for the thing that chose that moment to make a big entrance. It was worse than all the rest. If I'd found the steam demon disgusting with its mixture of organic and mechanical, this completely alien it, scuttling across the floor down below, completely turned my stomach. Numerous mechanical legs supported a dome housing a gigantic, gray, pulsing brain with a hideous ersatz face, formed in the center of the squishy gray matter itself, complete with eyes and teeth. It should have been funny, almost a cartoon. But there was nothing remotely humorous about the living incarnation of a nightmare. Its appearance was so unnerving that one could easily neglect taking inventory of the most important thing, its weapons. Even from this awkward angle, it was easy to see that it came equipped with what looked like an ultra-speed Gatling gun, like a Vulcan cannon. There was little doubt that up close there'd be other unpleasant surprises. "Listen," I hissed. "Suppose we can take this spider mind thing. We'd throw a monkey wrench into the invasion plan right here and now. I could run along the catwalk, drop down in front of the creature and fry it with my new toy." "Too dangerous," Arlene said. "It would get you with its machine guns before you get close enough to try," Rich added. These were extremely good points, I had to admit. Rethinking the idea, I realized that even if I succeeded, I would be ripped to shreds by the throng of monsters surrounding the boss. Rich seemed to be reading my thoughts when he said, "We should kill some of the other creatures, so the spider mind won't have as much backup." Maybe this guy could make an honorary Marine after all. Creeping along the catwalk rim, peeking over the edge, we made slow progress. While finding a more advantageous position, Rich sneezed. I think he was allergic to monsters. The element of surprise blown, it was time to open fire and blow them away. Their reward for paying attention. Arlene and I worked through the rockets we'd scavenged from the steam demon chamber. Good distance and angle to use those little darlings. There had been so much noise already that plenty of the monsters farther away still hadn't noticed what was going on. They were partying down. Our primary goal was to keep the spider mind from noticing as long as inhumanly possible, so we never shot a rocket in its direction. We still had a lot of unanswered questions. How well did the brain hear? And were other creatures supposed to report back? And were they in constant communication by radio or telepathy? We continued the slaughter. Rich was proving himself useful again, this time with his sig cow. Finally, the general run of monsters noticed that something was amiss. Some became agitated and began to run about, their roars more thoughtful, attuned to the condition of the general community. Communication, obviously. A few even attempted to apply what mentality they had to investigate the mysterious deaths of their comrades. Alas, the spider mind lived up to its name. It detected the trouble and began stomping around, trying to identify the source. But my respect for that great quantity of gray matter declined somewhat as the damned thing got frustrated and started blasting away at random, killing its troops. Rich crept over and offered more analysis.
Corporal Taggart,
Call me Fly.
Well, Fly, I've been thinking that the amount of energy required to actually move Deimos through hyperspace would be monumental. There's no way they could have snuck a huge power generator onto Deimos through those fairly small gates. We're talking terawatts, thousands of Hoover dams worth of power.
Makes sense, I said. Arlene nodded while continuing to hold down the fort.
The most likely explanation is that the power is coming from an external source, he said, and they're beaming it in somehow.
Rich, Arlene said.
Are you saying cut the power and end the invasion?
For the first time since seeing the spawning vats, I began to think we might really have a chance. So long as they had power, they could produce an endless number of monsters in their damned cauldrons. It was time to cancel their service.